The red warning lights flashed inside the command bunker, casting long, dancing shadows against the cold metal walls. The sound of alarms was constant, a loud noise that hurt the ears. In the center of the room, a large holographic map showed the space around Earth. Blue dots represented the human ships, and red dots represented the enemy. There were very few blue dots left. The red dots were everywhere, swarming like angry bees. General David stood with his hands behind his back. He stared at the map. His face was hard, showing no emotion, but inside he felt a heavy weight in his chest. For weeks, the Earth Defense Force had fought bravely. They had used their fastest fighters and their strongest missiles. But it was not enough. The enemy was too strong, too advanced, and too many. They were the Krylor Hegemony. They ruled a vast empire across the stars, and they had come to take Earth. "Report," David said. His voice was deep and tired. A young officer named Thomas looked up from his screen. Thomas looked scared. His fingers moved quickly over the keyboard. "The lunar base has gone silent, General. We lost contact 3 minutes ago. The Krylor fleet has broken the defensive perimeter. They are entering Earth's orbit now." David closed his eyes for a brief second. The moon base was the first line of defense. If it was gone, there was nothing left between the enemy and the surface of the planet. And the ground forces? "They are preparing for the landing," Thomas said. "The Krylor dropships are heading toward the Pacific Ocean, North America, and Europe. We estimate they will land in less than 2 hours." In the corner of the room, a woman named Emily stood watching a different screen. She was not a soldier. She was a scientist, an expert in history and old rocks. But today, she was the most important person in the room. She turned away from her screen and walked quickly toward General David. "General," she said. Her voice was urgent. "We cannot wait any longer. If we do, everything will be destroyed. You have to give the order." David looked at her. He knew what she was talking about. They had discussed this many times in secret. It was a crazy plan, a desperate plan. "Are you sure, Emily? We have never tested them. We do not know if they will even work. If we fail, we might destroy the planet ourselves." Emily shook her head firmly. "The readings are clear. They are waking up. They know the enemy is here. We have to dig them out now, before the Krylor land their troops. If we wait, it will be too late to move them." David looked back at the holographic map. The red dots were getting closer. He knew the human weapons were not strong enough to stop the Krylor. He saw fear in the eyes of his officers. He thought of the people in the cities above, the families who had no idea what was coming. He had no choice. He had to use the secret. "Jessica," David said to the communications officer. "Lock down the bunker. Cut all external lines, no one gets in or out." "Yes, General," Jessica replied. She typed the command into her console. David took a deep breath. This was the moment that would change history, or end it. "Thomas, initiate Protocol Titan. Send the signal to all 3 sites. Antarctica, the Sahara, and the Marianas Trench. Tell them to start the excavation." Thomas hesitated for a second. He looked pale. Then, he nodded. "Protocol Titan initiated. Sending codes now." The alarm in the bunker changed tone. It became a rhythmic pulse. On the screens, the map changed. It zoomed in on 3 specific locations on Earth. In the white ice of Antarctica, under the yellow sand of the Sahara, and at the bottom of the deep blue sea, hidden sensors began to beep. High above the Earth, in the darkness of space, the Krylor commander watched the small blue planet. His ship was massive, a dark dagger of steel hovering over the North Pole. He looked at the humans with disgust. To him, they were insects. Primitive creatures using simple metal and fire. Their defenses are gone, the commander said to his second-in-command. Prepare the ground invasion. I want this planet secured by sunset. The humans are sending a strange signal, the second-in-command said. It is very low frequency. It is coming from the planet's surface. Ignore it, the commander commanded. It is probably a distress call or a useless attempt to negotiate. Launch the drop ships. Thousands of small alien ships descended from the main fleet. They looked like black rain falling toward the ground. The Krylor did not know that humanity was not surrendering. They did not know that humans were not the native species they thought they were. They did not know about the deep past. Back in the bunker, the lights flickered. The air hummed with strange static electricity. Energy levels are rising, Thomas shouted. The artifacts are responding. The signal is stronger than we predicted. Is it safe? David asked, gripping the edge of the table. I don't know, Emily said. She was looking at her data with wide eyes. They are not just machines, General. They are alive. And they are hungry. Suddenly, the floor beneath them shook. It was not an earthquake. It came from deep below the Earth's crust. A low rumble vibrated through the metal of the bunker. The screens showed massive energy spikes. In the Sahara Desert, the sand began to move. It started as a small vibration, but soon it became a quake. Dunes collapsed, and a massive hole opened up. Giant shapes, covered in rust and dirt for millions of years, began to rise from the ground. They were huge, larger than any building ever made by humans. They were made of a black metal that looked like stone. In the freezing waters of the Antarctic, the ice cracked. A deafening sound echoed across the frozen landscape as something massive pushed its way up from the ocean depths. The water boiled and steamed. Deep in the Marianas Trench, lights turned on in the darkness. Ancient circuits, silent for eons, began to glow with a blue light. The sea creatures fled in terror as the mountain-sized machines started to move. David watched the monitor. Status report, he demanded. The excavation is complete, Thomas said, his voice shaking. The outer shells are breaking. They are coming up. Are the Krylor seeing this? David asked. Yes, sir, Jessica said. Their sensors are picking up the energy spikes. They are confused. On the surface of Earth, the sky turned strange colors. The air felt thick with power. People in cities ran out of their buildings and looked up. They did not see the alien ships yet. They saw beams of light shooting up from the ground. The Earth was pushing back. The Krylor commander in his ship frowned. What is that energy signature? It does not match their nuclear weapons. It is coming from 3 separate points, his second-in-command said. It is old, Commander. Very old. Scan it, the commander ordered. I want to know what they are hiding. But before the scan could complete, the first machine broke the surface of the Sahara. It stood up, shaking the sand off its massive shoulders. It was a bipedal walker, towering over the desert. It had a single red eye that glowed like a dying star. As it rose, it let out a metallic roar that shattered the windows of cities miles away. The sound was not just noise, it was a signal. In the bunker, Emily smiled. It was a smile of fear and hope. They remember who they are, she whispered. David watched the screen. The machine in the Sahara was fully awake. 2 more were rising from the ocean. These were not weapons built by humans. Humans had found them. Humans had kept them hidden. And now, humans had woken them up. General, Thomas said. The Krylor are changing course. They are sending a wave of bombers toward the Sahara site. They want to destroy it before it fully activates. David looked at the red dots moving toward the newly awakened giant. He clenched his fist. Let them come, David said. Let them see what humanity has been guarding. The war for Earth was just beginning, but the rules had changed. Humanity was not alone in this fight. They had unleashed their secret arsenal. The artifacts were older than the stars, older than the Krylor Empire, and they were angry. The sky above the Pacific Ocean was filled with black smoke and fire. The Krylor dropships had landed on the beaches and in the cities. Their weapons were green lasers that melted concrete and steel instantly. The human soldiers fought bravely on the ground, but their bullets just bounced off the advanced alien armor. It was a massacre. People were running in every direction, screaming and crying for help. The aliens moved like machines, showing no mercy and no emotion. In a secret underground hangar near the coast, James sat in the cockpit of a strange machine. It was called Unit Alpha. It did not look like a modern jet or a tank, it looked organic, as if it had been grown from a seed rather than built in a factory. The metal was warm to the touch, and the seat felt like soft leather. James was a test pilot. He had flown many planes, but he had never felt anything like this. He wore a special suit with electrodes attached to his head and spine. "Systems are online," a voice said in his ear. It was Anna. She was sitting in the control room, monitoring his heartbeat and brain activity. "How do you feel, James?" James took a deep breath. His hands were shaking a little. "I feel strange, Anna. It feels like the ship is talking to me. I can hear a buzzing sound in my head." "That is the neural link," Anna explained. "Do not fight it. Let the machine in. It needs to know you are the pilot." James closed his eyes and relaxed. He tried to clear his mind. Suddenly, the buzzing sound stopped, replaced by a feeling of power. He felt strong, like he could lift a mountain with one hand. He opened his eyes. The screens in front of him lit up, not with numbers, but with symbols he had never seen before, yet he understood them perfectly. The heavy blast doors of the hangar slowly opened. Bright sunlight flooded in. Outside, the battle was raging. James pushed the throttle forward. Unit Alpha did not roll on wheels. It lifted into the air silently, hovering for a moment, and then shot forward like a missile. Meanwhile, in the Sahara Desert, the situation was different. The Krylor ground forces had gathered to attack the giant object that had risen from the sand. It stood silent and still. The alien commander on the ground thought it was just a big statue. "Fire!" the alien commander shouted. Hundreds of alien tanks fired their green lasers at the giant machine. The beams hit the black metal, but they did not explode. They were absorbed. The metal glowed for a second and then turned dark again. The giant machine did not move. It seemed to be sleeping. The aliens laughed and prepared to fire again. But then, the ground began to shake. Inside the machine, gears that had not turned for millions of years began to grind against each other. Oil pumped through ancient pipes. A red light appeared on its chest plate. The machine, known as the Behemoth, was waking up. Back in the control bunker, General David watched the satellite feed. "They are engaging," he said. "Is James in position?" "Yes, General," Anna said. "James has just reached the combat zone." High above the desert, James saw the Krylor ships diving toward the giant walker. He felt a sudden anger in his mind. It was not his anger, it was the machine's unit Alpha wanted to protect the behemoth. James pointed the nose of his ship down and engaged the weapon systems. He did not have to press a button. He just thought about firing. Two bright blue beams shot out from the wings of his ship. The speed was incredible. The beams cut through 3 Krylor fighters instantly. There was no explosion, just a flash of light, and the ships were gone. "Target destroyed," James said calmly. He was surprised at how calm he felt. On the ground, the aliens were confused. They had never seen technology like this. It was fast, silent, and deadly. James banked left and dodged a missile that locked onto him. The ship moved as if it was reading his thoughts before he even made them. He looped around and fired again, taking out a troop carrier. Suddenly, a loud sound echoed across the desert. It came from the behemoth. The giant machine raised its right arm. The hand opened up, and a ball of dark energy began to form. The air around it crackled with purple lightning. The alien tanks stopped firing. They looked up in horror. The behemoth released the energy. It was not a beam, but a wave of invisible force. When the wave hit the Krylor tanks, they did not explode. They simply fell apart. The metal twisted, the glass shattered, and the circuits fried. The wave kept going, passing over the soldiers. Their weapons melted in their hands, but the soldiers were not hurt. The weapon was precise. It destroyed the technology but spared the lives of the humans watching from a distance. Emily watched the data stream with wide eyes. "Incredible," she whispered. "The weapon disrupts energy flow. It kills machines but leaves organic life untouched. It is an anti-tech weapon." General David nodded. "That explains why they were buried. They were built to fight a war against machines." The battle in the Pacific was turning around as well. More of the ancient machines were waking up. Giant crab-like walkers rose from the ocean floor. They marched onto the beaches where the Krylor were landing. The aliens shot at them, but the water from the ocean seemed to protect the walkers. The crabs fired blasts of steam and pressure, crushing the landing ships. James saw that the enemy was retreating. The Krylor pilots were scared. Their computers could not lock onto the ancient ships because the ancient ships did not register as solid objects on their radar. They appeared as ghosts or glitches. "We have them on the run," James said over the radio. "I am pursuing." "Be careful, James," Anna warned. "We don't know the limits of your fuel or power. Don't go too far." "I have to keep them away from the city," James replied. He pushed the throttle. The ship accelerated past the speed of sound. A sonic boom shook the ground below. The Krylor commander in space watched the battle in shock. "What are these things?" he yelled. "Our sensors cannot identify their composition. They are using physics we do not understand," a science officer said, trembling. "The energy signature is similar to the precursors." The commander turned pale. "That is impossible. The precursors are a myth. Destroy them. Use the main cannon." But it was too late. On the ground, the humans were cheering. They saw the giant black robot in the desert crushing the alien tanks. They saw the strange jet fighters dancing in the sky, shooting down the invaders. For the first time in weeks, hope returned. In the bunker, the mood was tense but focused. David looked at Emily. How many more can we wake up? Emily checked her tablet. There are signals coming from the Arctic, and maybe from the Himalayas. But they take time to wake up. The energy required is massive. We have time now, David said. James and the behemoth have bought us time. James landed his ship in the desert next to the behemoth. The giant robot looked down at him. For a second, James felt a connection. He felt a sense of gratitude from the machine. It knew they were fighting together. He climbed out of the cockpit and stood on the sand. The air smelled like ozone and burnt metal. A group of human soldiers ran toward him. They looked at him, and then they looked up at the towering giant behind him. They stopped and stared. They did not know whether to salute or pray. "Are you okay, sir?" one of the soldiers asked. James wiped sweat from his forehead. "I am fine," he said. "But we are not done yet. The battle in space is just starting." He looked up at the sky. The Krylor fleet was still up there, dark and heavy. But now, Earth had teeth. The secret arsenal was only just beginning to show what it could do. The aliens thought they were fighting primitive cavemen. They did not know they had woken up the gods. The victory on the ground was a huge relief for the human soldiers, but the celebration was short-lived. General David knew that the Krylor would not accept defeat easily. They were a proud empire. Now that their ground forces had been destroyed by the ancient machines, they would turn to their space fleet. David stood in the command bunker, looking at the main screen. The red dots of the enemy ships were moving into a formation above the Earth. "They are retreating to a safe distance," Thomas said from his station. "They are grouping up near the moon." David nodded. "They are going to use the main battery. They want to glass the planet." On the bridge of the Krylor flagship, the Grand Admiral sat in his command chair. He was an old alien with scars on his face from many wars. He looked at the image of the blue planet on his screen. He felt fear, which was an emotion he rarely felt. The machines that the humans had used were impossible. They looked like something from a bedtime story. "Report on the enemy weapons," the Grand Admiral demanded. A trembling science officer stepped forward. "We have analyzed the data, sir. The technology does not match any known race in the galaxy. However, the energy signature matches the legends. It matches the precursors." The bridge went silent. The precursors were a myth in their culture. They were said to be the ones who built the universe millions of years ago and then vanished. Every Krylor child heard stories about them, but no one believed they were real. "The precursors are extinct," the Grand Admiral snapped. "These humans must have found a cache of old weapons. They are like monkeys playing with a nuclear bomb." "Sir, the damage they did to our ground troops was not accidental," the officer insisted. "The machines fought with intelligence. They adapted to our shields. If we fire the main battery, we risk provoking something worse." "I do not care about legends," the Grand Admiral roared. "I care about the Empire. We cannot leave this planet alive. If the news spreads that a primitive planet defeated us, the Empire will fall apart. Order the fleet to charge the main weapons. Target the major cities. We will burn this world to ash." In the bunker, alarms began to scream. It was a different sound than before. It was a high-pitched wail that meant total destruction was incoming. "They are charging their weapons," Jessica shouted. "We have 5 minutes before they fire." General David looked at Emily. "Is there anything left? We used the ground walkers. Do we have anything that can fight in space?" Emily was typing furiously on her computer. She was sweating. Yes, but they are not finished waking up. The orbital rings. We call them the asteroids. What are they? David asked. They are giant stone structures hidden among the asteroid belt, Emily explained. They look like rocks, but inside, they are dormant stations. They can generate a shield. But they need a massive power source to activate instantly. Where do we get the power? The behemoth, Emily said. The machine in the Sahara. It is connected to the Earth's core. It can beam the energy to the rings. David looked at the tactical map. He had to make a choice. If he used the behemoth to power the shields, it would be defenseless on the ground. But if he didn't, everyone would die. Do it, David ordered. Tell James to have the behemoth target the rings. Activate the shield. Outside, the giant black robot in the desert raised its head. It looked up into the sky. Its chest opened up, and a beam of pure white light shot out. It moved faster than the eye could follow. The beam hit several dark rocks floating in space. Suddenly, the rocks cracked open. They were not rocks. They were ancient gray metal stations hidden inside stone shells. Blue lights flickered on all over them. The stations began to spin. Then, a web of blue energy connected them. The web grew wider and wider until it covered the entire planet. It was a massive shield. In space, the Krylor fleet fired. Thousands of green lasers shot down toward Earth. They hit the blue shield. There was a massive flash of light, like a new star being born. The lasers splashed against the shield and dissipated. The ground below remained safe. The cities were untouched. The Grand Admiral stood up. Again. Fire again. The shield is absorbing the energy, the science officer yelled. It is not breaking. It is getting stronger. Then, the orbital rings fought back. The stations did not fire lasers. They fired gravity pulses. Invisible waves of force smashed into the Krylor ships. Ships closest to the rings were crushed like soda cans. Others were thrown out of orbit, spinning wildly into the dark void. Thomas watched the chaos in the command center. The Krylor formation is broken. Their ships are drifting. They are terrified, David said, watching the screen. They don't know how to fight something they can't understand. On the bridge of the flagship, panic was setting in. The Grand Admiral's perfect formation was gone. His ships were floating dead in space. The sensors showed that the energy from the humans was ancient and powerful. It was the power of creation. Retreat, the Grand Admiral whispered. Sir, the pilot asked. I said retreat. The Grand Admiral screamed. Get us out of here. Jump to hyperspace immediately. But it was too late for some ships. The gravity pulses from the rings had disabled their engines. They were sitting ducks. James, flying his small interceptor, saw the chance. He launched from the atmosphere and joined the space battle. His ship moved like a ghost. He flew past a crippled Krylor destroyer and fired a single shot into its engine. The ship exploded silently. In the bunker, Jessica watched a different screen. General, I am picking up a signal from deep space. It is a code. Can you translate it? David asked. No, but Emily can. Emily rushed over. She put on headphones and listened. The sound was strange, a mix of musical tones and static. After a few minutes, she took off the headphones. Her face was pale. What is it? David asked. It is the artifacts, Emily said. They are talking to each other. The shield, the ground walkers, James S. ship, they are a network. And they are learning. What do you mean, learning? The Krylor technology is new to them, Emily explained. But the artifacts are analyzing the Krylor weapons in real time. They are adapting. The next time the Krylor fire, the shield will not just absorb the energy. It will reflect it back. David looked at the main screen. The Krylor ships were turning away. Their engines glowed bright as they tried to flee. The Grand Admiral was abandoning the invasion. He realized that the cost was too high. He had woken something he could not defeat. They are running, Thomas said, relief in his voice. They are leaving the system. Let them go, David said. For now. But David knew this was not the end. The Krylor Empire was huge. They would tell others what happened here. They would tell stories about the sleeping monsters on Earth. Some would come to steal the technology, and others would come to destroy it out of fear. Humanity was safe today, but the galaxy had changed its view of Earth. General David looked at the people in the bunker. They were smiling, hugging each other. They had survived. But as he looked at the symbol of the ancient shield on the screen, he felt a chill. The weapons were saving them, but they were also dangerous. They were powerful beyond imagination. Humanity held a tiger by the tail. We have won the battle, David said to Emily. But we have started a war. A war with the past and the future. Emily nodded. At least we have a fighting chance now. High above, the blue shield shimmered one last time before becoming invisible. The orbital rings went back to sleep, looking like simple rocks again. The behemoth in the desert lowered its arm and stood still, waiting for the next command. Earth was silent again, but it was a silence filled with power. The humans were no longer alone. The silence in the command bunker was heavy, but it was not the silence of defeat. It was the silence of shock and awe. On the main screen, the red dots of the Krylor fleet were scattering in all directions. They were no longer an organized army. They were afraid. The Grand Admiral had ordered a full retreat, leaving behind their damaged ships and their wounded soldiers. General David watched the tactical map. They are running, he said, his voice filled with disbelief. They are actually running. Thomas looked up from his console, a smile spreading across his tired face. The gravity pulses from the orbital rings disrupted their engines. They are sitting ducks out there. David nodded slowly. He turned to look at Emily. She was studying a stream of data coming from the ancient machines. Emily, what is the status of the artifacts? Can they pursue? Emily looked up, her eyes wide. They are fully active, General. The network is awake. The machines are communicating with each other. They are eager. Eager for what? David asked. To kill. No, Emily said, shaking her head. Eager to fulfill their purpose. And right now, they perceive the Krylor as a threat that has not been fully neutralized. Before David could give another order, the screens in the bunker changed. The view from the satellite cameras zoomed in on the giant walker in the Sahara, the behemoth. The massive machine lifted one of its heavy legs and took a step. Then, it took another. It was walking toward the ocean. Where is it going? Jessica asked. It is not just walking, Thomas said, checking the sensors. It is transforming. Look. The black metal of the behemoth began to shift and move. Plates slid over each other. The legs folded into the body. The arms retracted. The giant robot changed shape until it looked like a sleek, black arrow. With a thunderous boom, it launched itself into the sky. It broke the sound barrier, heading straight for space. James is following it, Anna announced over the radio. I have a link to his cockpit. He says the machines are calling him. In his small interceptor, James felt a pull in his mind. It was a magnetic feeling, drawing him upward. He flew higher and higher, leaving the atmosphere behind. Ahead of him, the transformed behemoth was moving fast, much faster than his ship. Unit Alpha, this is General David, the radio crackled. What is your status? James took a deep breath. I am going after them, General. The artifacts are mobilizing. We are not going to let them escape. Be careful, James, David said. Do not engage the entire fleet alone. I won't be alone, James replied. He looked at his radar. More signals were appearing. From the depths of the Atlantic, other machines were rising. Giant spear-shaped vessels, hidden for eons, were breaking the surface of the water and shooting into the sky. They were dark and silent, like sharks of the void. Humanity was launching a counterattack. In deep space, the Krylor Grand Admiral was screaming orders. Fix the engines. Get us out of here. The hyperdrive is damaged, the pilot reported. We need 10 minutes to recharge. We do not have 10 minutes. The Grand Admiral yelled. Suddenly, an alarm blared on the bridge. Multiple contacts approaching, the tactical officer shouted. It is the earthen machines. They are moving at incredible speeds. On the screen, the black shapes were closing in. They did not use conventional engines. They moved by manipulating gravity, folding space to jump forward. The lead ship, the behemoth, loomed large in front of the Krylor flagship. It was huge, dwarfing the alien ship. A communication channel opened on the Krylor bridge. A voice spoke. It was not a human voice. It was a synthesized sound, deep and resonant. It spoke in the Krylor language, but an ancient version of it that the Grand Admiral barely understood. Inheritors, the voice said. Do not return. The Grand Admiral froze. He knew that word. It was from the oldest texts of his religion. It was a warning from the gods. How do you know that language? He whispered, forgetting to broadcast his reply. The behemoth did not wait for an answer. It fired a warning shot across the bow of the flagship. The beam missed by inches, but the energy wave was so strong that it shook the massive ship violently. Lights shattered, and consoles sparked. James flew his ship alongside the behemoth. He watched in amazement. The alien fleet was terrified. They were not fighting back. They were trying to run. The psychological effect was total. The Krylor believed they were fighting spirits or demons. Target the engines of the lead ship, James said to his own ship. The artificial intelligence of the ancient craft seemed to agree. It locked onto the Krylor flagship's propulsion system. James, don't destroy it, Emily's voice came through the radio. If you destroy the flagship, the debris will hit Earth. Disable it only. James smiled. I know. He fired a precise pulse of energy. It hit the flagship's engine exhaust. The engines flared brightly and then died. The ship was dead in the water. The other Krylor ships saw this and panicked. They abandoned their flagship. They engaged their hyperdrives early, risking damage, just to get away. One by one, they blinked out of existence, jumping to random points in the galaxy. The space around Earth was suddenly quiet. The only things left were the human machines and the crippled Krylor flagship. We did it, Thomas said in the bunker. They are gone. General David let out a long breath he had been holding. He looked around the room. The soldiers and officers were cheering. They were hugging each other. Some were crying. They had survived an invasion by a superior force. David looked at the screen showing the alien flagship. It was drifting helplessly. "Jessica, open a channel to that ship," he ordered. "Channel open, sir." "This is General David of Earth," he said, his voice hard and cold. "You attacked our home. You underestimated us. Now, your fleet has fled and left you behind. Surrender, or be destroyed." There was a long pause on the other end. Then, the Grand Admiral's voice came through. He sounded broken. We surrender. Please, do not let the machines destroy us." "Tell your crew to abandon ship," David commanded. "We are taking your ship." An hour later, small escape pods launched from the Krylor flagship. The human machines corralled them, keeping them in a tight group. The behemoth and the other ancient vessels stood guard like giant statues in the dark. James sat in his cockpit, looking at the earth below. It looked so blue and peaceful. He felt a deep sense of pride. He was human, but today, humanity had become something more. They were the guardians of the greatest weapons in the universe. "James, return to base," Emily said softly. "The adrenaline will wear off soon. You need to rest." "I am coming home," James said. He turned his ship around and flew back toward the blue planet. As he entered the atmosphere, he saw the giant machines following him. They were descending back to their hiding places. The behemoth landed back in the Sahara, shifting back into its walker form. The war was over. The invasion had failed. But as James flew over the ruins of the city, he knew that the world had changed forever. Humanity had looked into the dark past of the universe and found power there. They had survived, but they had unleashed a force that could not be put back into the box. The aliens would remember this day. The galaxy would know that Earth was not a planet to be trifled with. It was a planet protected by giants. The red dust of the Sahara Desert swirled around the feet of General David as he stood at the base of the behemoth. The giant machine was silent now, standing like a mountain of black metal against the orange sky. The war was over. The Krylor ships had fled, and the flagship that remained was now under the control of human engineers. But as David looked up at the towering walker, he did not feel peace. He felt a heavy sense of responsibility. Emily stood beside him, holding a tablet computer. She was looking at the symbols engraved on the metal leg of the machine. "It has gone back to sleep," she said quietly. "Or at least, it is resting." "Can we wake it up again?" David asked. "If we need to." "Yes," Emily replied. "But it is not like turning on a light switch. The machine needs a pilot with a specific genetic marker. It needs a bond. James had it. There are others who have it too." David nodded. He looked toward the tent where James was resting. The young pilot was exhausted. His connection to the machine had taken a toll on his body. "And the others, the ones in the ocean?" "The same," Emily said. "They are waiting. They are like loyal dogs waiting for their master's call." 2 days later, the leaders of the world gathered in a secret meeting room deep underground. This was not the usual United Nations building. This was a bunker reinforced with lead and steel. The mood in the room was serious. Maps of the galaxy covered the tables, along with data from the captured Krylor flagship. General David stood at the head of the table. Beside him sat Thomas, Anna, and Jessica. They were the heroes of the war, but today they looked like worried parents. "We cannot hide what happened," David said to the group of presidents and prime ministers. The Krylor escaped. They will tell their empire. Other ships were watching from the edges of the system. They saw the artifacts. One of the leaders raised his hand. So, we are in danger again. We are in danger of being viewed as a threat, David corrected him. The Krylor are afraid. Other empires might try to destroy us out of fear. Or they might come to steal the technology. We need to use the machines to build a fleet, a military advisor suggested. We can conquer them before they attack us. No, Emily said firmly. Everyone looked at her. She stood up. That is exactly what the precursors did not want. These machines are defensive. They are protectors. If we use them to attack, the bond will break. The machines will turn on us. The room went silent. The thought of the machines turning on humanity was terrifying. They had seen what the behemoth did to the alien tanks. They did not want that power used against their own cities. Then we prepare, David said. We reverse engineer the technology. We use the knowledge from the Krylor ship and the artifacts to upgrade our own defenses. But we keep the artifacts as our secret weapon. The trump card. In the weeks that followed, the world changed. The destruction from the invasion was repaired quickly. Humans used the advanced technology discovered in the artifacts to build better shields and cleaner energy sources. The cities began to glow with a new light. Jessica was promoted to head of the new Earth Space Command. She oversaw the construction of orbital defenses based on the designs of the ancient rings. She worked long hours, often staring at the stars through the viewport of the command center. One evening, Thomas brought her a cup of coffee. You should rest, he said. Jessica took the coffee and smiled tiredly. I can't. Every time I look at the radar, I expect to see red dots returning. They will come back, Thomas said. But next time, we will be ready. James was given a new assignment. He was no longer just a test pilot. He was the commander of the Artifact Division. His job was to find other people who could bond with the machines. He traveled the world, looking for men and women who had the genetic marker. It was rare, but he found a few. Anna stayed in the lab, studying the biology of the pilots and the machines. She discovered that the pilots were not just controlling the metal. The metal was changing the pilots. They were becoming smarter, stronger, and living longer. The legacy of the precursors was rewriting human DNA. They are evolving, Anna told Emily one day. Humanity is changing. We are becoming the new custodians. 6 months after the war, a ceremony was held on the moon. The humans had built a monument there. It was a statue of a human hand reaching out to touch a metal claw. It represented the alliance between mankind and the ancient machines. General David gave a speech that was broadcast to the entire world. Today, we remember those we lost, he said. But we also look to the future. We are no longer a small planet hiding in the corner of the galaxy. We have awakened a power that is older than the stars. We are the inheritors. We are the guardians of Earth. As he spoke, the camera panned to the sky. Behind the moon, barely visible, was the shape of the behemoth. It had been moved to the moon as a permanent guardian. It stood silent watch over the Earth. Back on Earth, Emily sat in her office. She had decoded the final message from the ancient network. It was a simple text, left by the creators of the machines millions of years ago. It read, "To those who wake us, do not fear the dark. You are the light." She looked out her window. The sun was setting. The city was peaceful. Children were playing in the parks. People were going home from work. They did not know about the monsters sleeping in the desert, or the giants at the bottom of the sea. They just knew they were safe. The phone on her desk rang. It was David. "Emily, we have a signal," he said. "It is from a neighboring star system. They want to talk." Emily smiled. "It begins," she said. "Yes," David agreed. "The galaxy knows we are here now." Humanity had unveiled its secret arsenal. The artifacts were older than empires, stronger than fleets, and now, they belonged to Earth. The story of the primitive planet was over. A new chapter was beginning. Humanity was no longer the child of the universe. They had grown up. They stood tall, backed by the power of the past, ready to face the future. The Krylor would return one day, perhaps. Or maybe others would come. They would bring their lasers and their shields. They would expect an easy fight. But they would find the waiting giants. They would find the humans who commanded them. The sun disappeared below the horizon, and the first stars of the night appeared. One of those stars twinkled, like a watchful eye. General David looked up at the sky from his balcony. He took a sip of his drink and whispered into the wind, "We are waiting." The Earth was safe. The arsenal was awake. And humanity was finally home.